Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Sales Summit. My name is Robert Tucker. Today, I am talking with Jim McCord about critical skills that every real estate agent needs to be successful and how to get the best results. So welcome, Jim.
How you doing, Rob?
Outstanding. And thank you so much for joining us. Greatly honored and very appreciative. So, hey, Jim is the founder of A Revolution in Real Estate, author of the book by the same name, which is outstanding. You guys can pick up on Amazon. He's been a licensed realtor since 1993 in Ohio and Kentucky, extremely successful, and now a national speaker on real estate sales. Been a guest speaker on all kinds of podcasts and shows and forums and things like that. So, Jim, let's get into it. So everyone can get a better understanding of you and your background and kind of where you're coming from. Give us your story. Where'd you come from? How'd you get into real estate? And have at it.
Well, thanks for having me on, Rob. I've only talked to you once before. We had a great meeting. We've got a lot in common. I look forward to seeing the other people that you have on your real estate summit. But I'll tell you, I got into real estate in 1993.
Woo.
And I had been in sales before that, 3 or 4 different sales positions, working as a paid salesperson for Fortune 500 companies. And the last company I was with, I was a little bit burnt out, and I told my wife I wanted a change. We had 4 kids, and I asked her, she was working part-time at the hospital. I said, Amy, would you be willing to work full-time for just a few months while I research what I really want to do? I don't want to keep switching companies. And she said, yeah. She said, if you want to take care of 4 kids, I would love to do that. So she did that for about 4 months, and I, had the responsibility of getting 4 kids ready for school and getting their lunches and picking them up from school. And I took a whole lot of time to do research, and I looked into a lot of things. But I tell you, Rob, why I chose real estate. When my wife and I worked with realtors before that, I was never impressed with the real estate agents that worked with us. I remember thinking, it just seemed like we had worked with 3 different realtors over the years, and it seemed like as a buyer's agent, as a buyer's realtor, they just wanted Amy and me to buy the house. And they weren't really looking out for us. And they weren't dressed professionally. They didn't really talk professionally. And I just felt like we were being pressured. And that always kind of stuck in the back of my head. And, I'm doing all this research into all these different sales fields I could get into. And I thought, you know what? Somebody got into real estate and they treated people the way people want to be treated. And they treated it like a full-time career, like a job. I'll bet they could do really good. Yep. So literally, that's why I got into real estate, 1993. And I'll tell you, you mentioned my book. I have a book that I wrote about 5 years ago, Revolution in Real Estate Sales. And I actually say in the book, and I don't say this to knock real estate agents at all, but it's true. I got in because I was not impressed with the field.
Yeah.
And here I am 26 years later. And my opinion of the real estate agents as a group, not individuals, is actually lower than it was before I got in. And again, that's not to knock the real estate industry. That's not to knock the companies. There's a whole lot of really good professional real estate agents. Yeah. But Rob, you and I talked a little bit just before the podcast here, and name me one other industry where professional people have the opportunity that people have here. If you go get a sales career for a Fortune 500 company, you're competing against professional salespeople.
That's right.
All of them. Now, in real estate, we don't have that. We have 5 or 10%, maybe 15 at the most in some markets, who are professional. Yeah. And so you got to look at it as a real opportunity, and that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what I always say, too. I said the reality is for the right people, there's no competition in real estate.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, so, all right, let's get into that then. So, you love for sale by owner, you love expireds, and we hear so many people going, oh, God, no, not those. So give us your advice. How do people get in front of expireds and for sale by owners? What do they do?
Well, to go back a little bit farther, I've tried about everything over 26 years in real estate. And when I first started, I started working. I went down to the board and I asked our local board who was the top realtor the previous year, and they gave me his name, and I called him up and I said, "Hey, Dave, my name's Jim McCord. I'm getting into real estate. I'd love to take you to breakfast or lunch." So, he allowed me to do that. And I decided, well, I can work in his office. I'm going to work at the same broker, the same office he does, which is what I did. Because, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to talk to the number one guy and I'm going to watch him and see what he does. And so I learned a lot from Dave. I learned a whole lot from Dave. But, I was working for the number one real estate company. They're not even around anymore, so I don't mention their name. But in Cincinnati, it was called West Shell Realtors.
Yep.
And they were number one by far. They ended up being bought out by Coldwell Banker. But they like almost every other broker that I've ever worked for, and I worked for 6 over the past 26 years, all teach like all these things that realtors should be doing. There are so many things, and probably most of them are really good things, but there's just way too many things. And it's true to this day. And what I learned pretty quickly on that if we had 4 children and I wanted to have a life. So I realized that if I want to have a life and control my time, I'm going to be a listing agent. And rather than do what I like to call spray marketing and just kind of like cold call everybody, which I did for a couple of years because the coaching organization that I paid back then in 1994 is still around. And they still teach people or try to get people to make 100 cold phone calls a day.
You just narrowed that down by a long shot.
Yeah. Well, I did that. And I'm not knocking them because it works. It absolutely works. But what I realized pretty quickly into it, that rather than do the spray marketing, why not focus all of my time and all of my money on people who want to sell right now? And there's 2 groups of those, and there's plenty of them. They're called for sale by owners and expireds. And almost 100% of those people want to sell. And rather than making 100 cold phone calls a day, I started prospecting just like 2 or 3 a day.
Oh.
But I was only prospecting for sale by owners and expireds.
Okay.
And that really worked for me because I'm not doing the spray marketing, and I'm not hoping maybe somebody wants to buy or somebody wants to sell.
So back then, you didn't have the ability to use something like a Red X or Vulcan 7 or any of these, or even go on Zillow and just look them up. How'd you find them? How did you find those guys?
Well, there was something called, and I don't even know, it could still be around. I don't know. I haven't used it for at least 10 or 12 years, but it was called the Haynes Directory. And you could get numbers out of the Haynes Directory as a book that you had to pay like $150 a year to subscribe. It's a real thick book, and it had all those addresses and all those phone numbers. And that's what I used back then. But, over the years, as you all know, as every realtor knows, there are, you mentioned a couple of the companies, I won't mention again, but there are so many companies out there marketing to us for phone numbers and addresses. And I have to laugh at it. I've never paid anyone ever, because if they can get that information, I can get that information. And, especially the kind of marketing I've done the last 10 or 12 years, almost every other realtor is phone call, phone call, phone call. That's their primary method of prospecting. Some door knocking, but phone call, phone call, phone call, maybe throw in some mailings. But I started doing things a little bit differently about 10 or 12 years ago, and it really worked for me. And I do want to get their phone number, but that's only a small part of the marketing that I do to get a listing appointment with a for sale by owner expired.
Okay, so you're doing some. What's the big draw for you? How are you, if you're not doing those phone calls, what are you doing?
Well, here's the thing, and we talked about this a little bit early on when we first started this conversation, but the public really doesn't like real estate agents. And it's not that they don't like us, it's that most of us don't work full time. Yeah. So we have a bad impression. We leave a bad impression with most of the public. Yeah. And that's not Jim McCord saying that. Gallup does a poll every year. And for the last 5 years, real estate agents have ranked below lawyers in public trust.
Oh, God.
Below lawyers in public trust. Yeah. And high level of public trust, we're below lawyers. And, that's the wrong place to be.
Yeah, it is.
So, yeah, it absolutely is. And, there's a lot of reasons for that. I don't claim to know them all, but I really do claim, I personally believe, in my experience, And keep in mind that I did that. I was one of those typical realtors for years. I believe it's all the phone call that most realtors are doing.
Yeah.
And let's face it, you don't like cold phone calls. I don't like getting cold phone calls either at home or on my cell phone. You know, I don't answer those. The public doesn't like it either.
That's right. If I don't know the number, I don't answer it.
Exactly. So, you know, a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, let's just face it. You know, they say it's like an 80-20 rule in pretty much in any industry. It's more like 90-10 or 95-5 in real estate industry, because most realtors don't work. And so most realtors are not prospecting, number one. They're not. If they were prospecting, you know, we wouldn't have these figures that 80+% of the realtors leave the industry within 2 or 3 years. Right. But of the ones who are prospecting, most of them are prospecting with either phone call or door knock or company mailings. When I say company mailings, what I'm saying is they're mailing out literature that they got from the company with company brochure, how great the company is, the history of the company, and the agent. If it's the top agent, they're going to include some of their testimonials and maybe how great they are and how many homes they've sold in the past year or 5 years or 10 years. And that's what everybody's getting.
Yeah.
And we know people don't like cold phone calls, and we certainly don't like door knocks.
Right.
And the mailings are all the same. So I was telling you about 10 or 12 years ago, I started doing something different. What I do differently, and it really, really works for me, is rather than send company information and only phone call, I actually use 8 different methods of follow-up, and I'll gladly talk about most of them on this conversation. But rather than make that first contact a cold phone call like everybody else is, I will drive by and I'll take a photo of their house. And they're going to get a card like this in the mail from me. And on that card is on the front of that card is a photo of their house. So when they open this envelope, and the envelope appears to be hand addressed, it's not, but it looks like it's hand addressed. And they open it up and they see their house. Now, sometimes I'll put wording on that photo and sometimes not. But when they pull a card out with a photo of their house, they're impressed. They're thinking, oh my God, who sent me this? They're going to open that card. And then on the inside is my information, you know, their names up at the top, some information about why they want to meet with me, and then my contact information. And you design all 4 panels of these. And when they get this, it works because it's about them.
Right.
And that's the first contact that I try to make that the first contact. Now there's an exception to that, and that's I love, you know, I've mentioned for sale by owners and expireds. Expireds are by far and away the best, number one. And there's a couple reasons for that. The expired listing is way more likely to list at a reasonable price. You know, any realtor who's been around for a couple of years knows that almost every for sale by owner thinks their house is worth way more than it is.
Oh, yes.
And so, you know, if you're going to spend your time, and I've spent probably my first 10 years, I probably listed more for sale by owners than I did expireds. But not with all of them, but to list most of those, to get the seller to agree to list with you, if you're a for sale by owner, you pretty much have to agree to overprice it. Now, there's agents that are going to say, oh, no, Jim, I'm really good at convincing them. Well, here's a way to look at that. You own a house, and let's say, Rob, your house, you think it's worth $300,000. Mm-hmm. And you have a for sale by owner sign out there. And you and your wife decide you're going to interview 2 or 3 or 4 agents. So you have the first agent in, you know, you give them a tour of the house. They sit down, they show you the comps, they go over the comps. And they say, I think your house is worth around $300,000. Let's list it for $304,000 to $309,000. Mm-hmm. Or actually, you know, we should talk about your video I saw that you made last week, which is phenomenal. $305,000 to $310,000. Really. So let's say that $305,000 to $310,000. So the next day they have that second realtor in. The second realtor gets a tour of the house with the homeowner. They sit down at the same kitchen table, show them the same comps. And they say, I think your house is going to sell somewhere around $285,000 or $290,000. Let's list it at $295,000 to $300,000. Okay. So the next day they had that third realtor in, and he or she comes in and, you know, do the tour of the house. They sit down at the same time, show them the exact same comps. But this realtor happens to be the honest realtor and the one who knows the market, knows the industry. It says, look, your house is not going to sell for any more than 280 max. The highest we can list this is 285. Well, she leaves. The husband and wife sit down. They both agree they're going to list at 310 with that first agent because that last agent just gave away $25,000 of their money. We can always come down, honey. We're not going to give away $25,000, and that's just the way it is. Yep. So that's the number one reason that it's better to work expired listings. It's not like they're guaranteed to list at a reasonable price, but they're more likely because they've been on the market for a while and they're a little bit more educated.
That's right, and they already failed once.
Exactly, and the second reason is an expired listing is going to make a decision very quickly. Typically, usually within a week or two, they're going to relist either with that same agent or another agent.
Right.
Whereas if you're calling only on for sale by owners, you might have to keep them. You might have to keep following up with them for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months before they make the decision to list with anybody.
That's right.
So that sales cycle is much shorter. You either get them or you don't. You get them or you don't. You're spending way less time prospecting. So there's two reasons. And then the final reason that expireds are so much better is, and all MLS statistics will verify this, but an expired listing in general sells quicker than a for sale by owner that just got listed because they are priced more reasonably, especially if it's a second time expired listing. Sure. So not only is the sales, your prospecting cycle shorter, but the sales cycle from the time it was listed till the time it sells is actually a little bit shorter also. So I love expired listings.
So do you do the same process to get in front of expireds, like that photo card that you were just showing a second ago?
I do, and I'm glad you mentioned that because the only difference with the 8 methods of follow-up are all the same, but the first piece that they're going to receive or the first prospecting that I'm going to do with an expired listing that expired last night is something that I call a drop letter. Because some of those expireds are going to relist the very next day, either with the same agent or another agent.
Right.
So if I'm going to send them something in the mail like this, it's going to take 3 or 4 days to get there. Yeah. And I don't want to lose that. So I do a drop letter if it expired first. And what a drop letter is, it's just a short letter I print out. Typically, I'll actually put a photo of their house at the top of that letter. Perfect. And then I'll put their names below that. Your listing is expired. I'd love to meet with you and share how I'm different than every other realtor. All realtors are not the same. And that's kind of a theme that I use in all of my follow-up. Yep. Because they think we're all the same.
Yes.
And a lot of us are the same.
Yes.
So when somebody tells them they're different, they like that.
Yeah.
And so that goes on the drop letter. And then I'll also put, like if they had really bad photos. And it's amazing to me how many realtors use bad photos in a listing. It's just mind-boggling. Not only bad photos, a lot of realtors are taking their own photos still. Some of them are actually using their own phone.
Yeah.
They list a $500,000 house or even a $200,000 house and use their own phone.
They are.
It's mind-boggling. Or if it has a bad first photo. The first photo, in my opinion, is more important than the price to get people interested. The price is still obviously the most important. But man, if you go after expired listings that use the wrong first photo, you're going to get them almost every single time.
Yes, yes. Well, that's that, that first impression. That's what gets them to stop and take a second look when they see the right impression that they're looking for, that hits their emotional piece.
Yeah, they're looking for a reason why their home didn't sell.
Yeah.
And of course, they're always blaming the agent. Sometimes it's the agents. Usually it's almost always price because, as we all know, every house will sell, even if it's staged poorly, even if it's horrible paint, it's still going to sell at the right price. It's going to sell.
Correct.
But a lot of times it is the agent's fault. We have these things called drones, and it's been around for 6 or 7 or 8 years.
Oh yeah.
And very few agents are using the aerial photography. Now we can't take our own. There's a fine through the FAA, but you can hire an FAA-approved drone photographer. And when that first photo is an aerial photo from 50 or 100 feet above the house, and it shows the house in the entire yard, maybe a pool in the back, maybe some trees or woods, that photo stands out among all the other photos on Zillow or on KellerWilliams.com or Remax.com or Coldwell Bank or whatever. Absolutely. When you use an aerial photo as the first photo, and not every house needs that, but a good percentage of them do have that. And when you show that to the homeowner of an expired listing and say, why didn't your previous agent use aerial photos? And they're thinking, oh, I don't know. You know, they don't know. They didn't realize that it should be done.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me because I've been on over 100 MLSs in the last 2.5 years that I've been coaching. And a lot of times, especially like in Los Angeles or up in New Jersey or down in Fort Lauderdale, you know, I'll have agents tell me, and I haven't been on an MLS before in that market, and they'll say, well, all the agents in our market use really good photos. And where it's warranted, they use aerial photos. So the first thing I'll do with them is get on the MLS and we'll go back like 6 months and look at all the expired listings. And we'll pull a thumbnail shot up, one line thumbnail. So we'll look at that first photo and scroll down. And I haven't been on a listing yet where I can't find a ton of expired listings that had really bad first photo. And that's kind of the best hook that I know of once you meet them. Now, you know, you have that information and you know that's going to work, but you still have to get in front of that homeowner to let them know what you're going to do differently.
That's right. So how do you do that? What's your process for getting in front of them?
Well, I showed you, you know, the smaller envelope, but the same company that I use, you can send 5x7 envelopes. These are $1.49. Now, when I use these, I don't print these out. I design these on either on my cell phone, on my tablet, or my laptop or desktop. Takes a couple minutes, literally. Drop a picture on, and I have that wording saved. Drop their name in, and you just hit send, and the company prints, stuffs, addresses, and sends this in an envelope for $1.49 plus postage.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, but you also have the option of sending 8.5 by 11 cards, and not only the card, but you can design the envelope.
Oh.
So quite often, now imagine, you know, you own a house, or let's say you own that expired house, and you're getting all these phone calls.
Yes.
And you're getting some people, some agents, not many, some are dropping stuff off at your door, and you're getting mailings. And so everybody gets between 2 and 10 pieces of mail a day.
Yep.
So you come home and you get 7 or 8 pieces of mail, and you see a 9 by 12 envelope that's your house.
The picture.
And you're thinking, this is the envelope. There's a stamp, you know, the address, return address. And you're thinking, somebody's got my house on an envelope. That's the first envelope you're going to open.
Absolutely.
And then you open that, and on the card, and this is a very heavy stock card. This isn't like normal paper stock. Is your house again, and you can put wording. On this one, I put charming home, great location. And then on the inside is where you put your information about you and your broker, and you design the back. So that's a really good touch. I mean, it's a really good, because it's not all about Jim McCord and Keller Williams.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about them, and they get it right away.
Yeah.
And then along with that, you know, and I don't send all these at once, but the first touch is typically this card.
Okay.
You know, and this envelope, because it's powerful. And these are $6.99 for the envelope and the card. Now you tell me, when somebody's going after a $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000, where they're going to make $6,000 to $16,000, is it worth spending $8? I think it is. Yeah, yeah. So that's typically the first thing they're going to get. And they're also going to get, and I mentioned that I use 8 different methods of follow-up. Phone calls, one of them. That's usually the third or the fourth thing that I do.
Okay.
I use drop letters. I use these mailings with photos of their house on them. I search them out on Facebook. Most people are on Facebook these days.
Yes.
And most of the time you can pin it down and find that person on Facebook. And even if you're not friends with them, which you're not likely to be, you can still send them a message.
That's right.
So then I send them a message, and I coach agents to send a message to that homeowner. Hey, I'm Jim McCord. Your listing expired a couple days ago. I'm the guy who left a packet at your door. And in a couple more days, you're going to get another packet from me in the mail. I'm different than all the other realtors. So that's the Facebook message they get.
Love it.
Yeah. And I don't know any other agents now. You know, all agents are on Facebook, but what they're typically doing is they're posting their listings on Facebook.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, you know, I have a chapter in the book about that. People are using, in my opinion, you know, if you have, and most agents do have their own Facebook business page, It's a great idea to put your listings on your business page. You should be doing that. And you should put your sales on there and market updates. But on your personal page, people don't want to see Jim McCord or Rob Tucker's listings. They don't go to Facebook to see real estate listings.
Yep.
So on your personal page, you shouldn't be doing that. But I don't know of any other agents that are sending Facebook messages, prospecting. That's another method, to contact. Yeah, and it really, really works. Another one is LinkedIn messages. Now, there's far fewer people on LinkedIn